to Nazir Fears, where your darkest nightmares come to life. This Halloween, get ready for thrilling true stories that will leave you questioning what's real and what's just a horrifying whisper in the dark. From poisoned candy and haunted houses to a disappearance that defies all logic, these are the stories you won't forget. If you dare to face the terror, hit that like button, subscribe, share, and make sure you click the bell, because what happens next might just haunt you forever. Are you ready to dive into the unknown? The Halloween Murder of a Trick-or-Treater, 1982. Introduction. Halloween 1982 was supposed to be a memorable night for the O'Brien family, filled with costumes, candy, and the excitement of trick-or-treating. Ronald O'Brien, a father of two, had always been the one to make holidays special for his children. His son, Timothy, was only 8 years old, and his sister, Elizabeth, was a little older. The O'Brien family had been looking forward to a night of fun, one filled with the usual excitement of dressing up as their favorite characters and filling bags with treats from their neighbors. But behind the innocence of this family outing, a darker, more sinister plan was already in motion. Ronald had been struggling with a severe financial crisis, his debts mounting up with no hope in sight. The allure of an easy way out crept into his mind as the cost of his family's survival grew more desperate. Little did anyone know, on that October night, Ronald would go to extreme lengths to make sure he could get the money he so desperately needed. The night begins. It started out like any other Halloween night. The streets were alive with the laughter of children, the crisp air filled with the smell of autumn leaves, and the soft glow of jack-o'-lanterns lined up on porches. Ronald and his two children were out in their neighborhood, joining other families in the excitement of collecting candy. Timothy wore a simple pirate costume, and Elizabeth was dressed as a princess, both children beaming with joy as they raced from door to door. As they reached one of the last houses on their route, they came across a neighbor's home with the lights off. The door remained shut, giving off an eerie, almost deliberate silence. Ronald, in his usual cheerful manner, suggested they move on to the next house, but the thought of more candy made Timothy beg his father to give it one more try. Ronald thought for a moment before making a decision. He reached into his bag and pulled out some candy from his own stash, pretending it came from the house. After all, he had planned this evening carefully, and Timothy wouldn't suspect a thing. It was the last piece of the puzzle. Just a small dose of poison to ensure everything would go according to plan. The poisoned candy. As Ronald handed out the candy, including a small packet of pixie sticks to Timothy, he smiled at his son. The candy was laced with cyanide, a deadly substance that could kill within hours. Timothy excitedly accepted the treat, not knowing the danger it posed. He ripped open the candy and took a bite, smiling as the sugary contents filled his mouth. The night continued on without incident, and the family eventually returned home. Ronald felt a sense of satisfaction. The plan was unfolding just as he had hoped. But the true horror began as they settled in for the night. Timothy, who had been full of energy moments before, began to complain of stomach pains. At first, Ronald assumed it was just the excitement of the night catching up with him. But as the minutes ticked by, Timothy's condition grew worse. The pain became unbearable, and soon he was vomiting uncontrollably. Timothy's screams echoed through the house as he collapsed to the floor, his face pale and drenched in sweat. Ronald's demeanor shifted. The carefully planned crime was now becoming a nightmare of its own. His son was dying, and he had no way to stop it. He rushed Timothy to the hospital, but it was too late. The poison had done its job. The investigation. The authorities immediately began investigating Timothy's death, but at first they believed it was a tragic accident, perhaps the result of eating too much candy or a random illness. But as the hours passed, the doctors became suspicious. Timothy's rapid decline didn't match typical food poisoning symptoms, and they sent samples of the candy to the lab for testing. When the results came back, they found the horrifying truth: cyanide. It was then that the investigation took a shocking turn. Ronald, who had seemed distraught, was now a person of interest. Suspicion grew when detectives learned that Ronald had recently taken out a life insurance policy on both of his children with a large payout in case of their deaths. The truth comes out. The evidence against Ronald began to pile up. The police discovered that he had purchased the cyanide just days before Halloween. He had been desperate for money, unable to pay off his mounting debts. Ronald had even made plans to kill his daughter, Elizabeth, with a second cyanide-laced pixie sticks, but she had refused to eat the candy, feeling that something was off. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that Ronald's motivations were rooted in greed. He had been planning the murder for months, seeing his children's deaths as a way out of his financial troubles. The insurance policies he had taken out on his children were his only hope of paying off his debts. Ronald was arrested, charged with the murder of his son, Timothy. The court proceedings were public, and the story of a father poisoning his child shocked the nation. Ronald's trial was followed by many, and in the end, justice was served. He was convicted of capital murder and sentenced to death by lethal injection. The legacy of the crime. Timothy's death marked a chilling chapter in the history of Halloween. The incident left an indelible mark on the holiday, leading to changes in how candy is handled and inspected, especially during the Halloween season. The term Halloween sadist became a dark, pervasive part of the lexicon as parents became more cautious about the candy their children collected. But the true tragedy lies in the loss of innocence. For years, Halloween had been a time for children to dress up and experience the magic of the season. But after Timothy's death, the holiday was forever tainted by the knowledge that some people would stop at nothing to use it for their own evil purposes.